When Robert Kiyosaki met the billionaire Donald Trump, the two powerhouses of business and finance came together to collaborate on a new book that promises to be a game changer in the world of wealth building and financial education. But little did they know, the journey to creating this book would be filled with twists, turns, and unexpected challenges. Will they be able to overcome these obstacles and create something truly revolutionary? Join us on the journey to find out. In this video, the story of Millionaire meets Billionaire from the best-selling book, Why We Want You to Be Rich, Two Men, One Message, by the great authors Robert Kiyosaki and US President Donald Trump. Get ready to expand your mind, learn valuable lessons, and gain a deeper understanding of the principles that drive successful individuals. You'll not only gain knowledge, but also practical guidance to apply in your own life. Unleash your full potential with Rich Mind channel, where you'll discover valuable insights and knowledge from renowned authors and speakers from around the world. Whether you're looking to improve your professional skills, achieve success, or build wealth, this channel is dedicated to providing you with the tools and resources you need to reach your goals. Join us on our journey to success and subscribe today. Let's learn and grow together. Millionaire meets Billionaire. Robert's View, Chicago, November 6, 2005. On a bustling Sunday afternoon, a throng of individuals gathered at a real estate exposition hosted by the Learning Annex in Chicago. The convention center is teeming with an array of exhibits and displays showcasing various wealth-building investment options. In compact classrooms, knowledgeable instructors are imparting their expertise and insights on how attendees can attain financial prosperity. The spacious hall is alive with an infectious energy as people eagerly absorb the information and ponder on how it can transform their financial futures. Behind the scenes, in the bustling production room, a distinct kind of thrill can be felt. The atmosphere is charged with a hushed and electric excitement. A sleek black limousine has just arrived and murmurs of anticipation can be heard among the crew. He's here. Donald Trump has arrived. Robert is standing with his partner and co-author, Sharon Lechter, in the green room, a private lounge where the main speakers wait before going on stage, so he does not see the limo arrive. But when he sees two police officers go past the door of the green room, he knows Donald Trump is about to enter. He hurries out to make way for him and his approaching entourage. A tall, imposing figure can be seen stepping out of the limo by me, who is standing outside the green room. It could only be Donald Trump, whose silhouette is known to millions of The Apprentice viewers from around the world. Two lines are spontaneously formed by those of us fortunate enough to have backstage passes. As if on cue, admirers in two lines are walked between by Donald Trump, who is smiling and nodding. It is a greeting reserved for royalty or heads of state. If it had been Hollywood, a red carpet would have been ordered. Bill Zanker, founder and CEO of the Learning Annex, greets Donald, shows him into the green room and shuts the door. As the tall and imposing figure of Trump stepped out of the limo, a young woman let out a gasp of amazement. "He's even more impressive in real life," she said. The crowd couldn't help but stare in awe as Trump walked by, smiling and nodding. It was a greeting reserved for royalty or heads of state. As the door to the green room opened, Robert saw that Trump was talking to reporters. Bill Zanker, Robert's friend and business partner, walked over to him and said, "Are you ready to introduce Donald?" Rich Dad's Robert Kiyosaki introducing the Donald. "The crowd will love it." Robert nodded in agreement and Trump emerged from the green room, walking over to where Robert and Bill were standing. After a few private words with Bill, Trump turned to Robert and said, "Hello again. You're introducing me." Robert nodded, still in awe of the moment. Trump then complimented Robert on his continued success as a best-selling author and suggested they do a book together. Robert, stunned by the offer, was momentarily speechless. Bill jumped in, excitedly agreeing that it would be a bestseller. Robert, finally finding his words, weakly agreed, "Great idea. Let's do it." As Trump and Robert shook hands, Trump turned to his bodyguard, Keith, and said, "Give Robert my card." Keith, the imposing bodyguard, smiled and handed Robert one of Trump's personal business cards. From that moment on, Robert knew that his life would never be the same. He had just agreed to co-author a book with none other than the one and only Donald Trump. Robert was still in shock as Donald gave him his card and told him to call him the next time he was in New York. Robert couldn't believe that he was going to write a book with one of the most successful business authors and entrepreneurs in the world. He couldn't wait to begin putting the book together and was excited to meet Meredith, the person who would help them with the project. As they were about to head to the stage, Robert introduced Donald to Sharon, and they shook hands. The show was about to begin, and Robert had to introduce Donald to the crowd of over 24,000 people who were waiting for him. As Robert finished his brief introduction, the theme song from the mega-hit television show, The Apprentice, came on. Thousands of gold balloons fell from the ceiling, and the crowd erupted with applause as Donald Trump walked on stage. Robert couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and pride, knowing that he was going to be working with this incredible businessman, and that their book was going to be a bestseller. The long ride home. Robert's mind was racing as he flew home from Chicago to Phoenix. The reality of the handshake with Donald Trump was starting to sink in, and he couldn't shake off the feeling of doubt and insecurity. Who am I to write a book with Donald Trump? He kept asking himself. And what would we write about? As the flight attendant offered him a blanket, Robert smiled and politely declined. But as soon as she left, an idea suddenly popped into his head. We could write about real estate, he thought. However, his personal critic quickly chimed in, reminding him of the stark differences between him and Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in the major leagues, and you're in the little league, his critic taunted. He builds skyscrapers in New York, and what do you own? A few apartment houses, a few low-rise commercial buildings, and some raw land. Besides, he's a billionaire and you're only a millionaire. These thoughts weighed heavily on Robert, making him question his own accomplishments and successes. He felt unworthy of the opportunity to write a book with Donald Trump and couldn't shake off the feeling of self-doubt. What can we possibly write about? He asked himself repeatedly as the plane flew from Chicago to Phoenix. 2 long weeks. 2 weeks passed and Robert's friend Bill called from New York, asking why he hadn't called yet. Robert explained that he felt like a chicken and that Donald's financial statement had a few more zeros and commas than his. Bill reminded Robert of his own success and urged him to call Meredith and find out what they could write about. Feeling encouraged, Robert hung up with Bill and dialed Meredith's number. "Hello, this is Meredith McIver," came the response on the other end. Robert took a deep breath and began to talk to her, and thus the book was born. Most rich people don't want others to know how they got rich, much less tell people about their failures. I want people to know because it's how I learned so much. I want people to know that, rich or poor, we all have financial problems. The Boardroom. December 12, 2005. Robert Kiyosaki was in New York to record a television program for PBS and to meet with Yahoo Finance, as well as to explore a potential book concept with his friend Meredith. On December 12, he and his wife, Kim, took a cab to Trump Tower, where they were set to have a meeting with Donald Trump himself. As they stood outside the building, Robert couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at its grandeur, and was filled with pride at how far he had come in his life. He remembered his humble beginnings as a poor Hawaiian kid who came to New York to attend the Merchant Marine Academy in 1965, and now, he was invited by Donald Trump to his office in one of the most famous buildings in the city. As they entered the building and took the elevator to the top floor, Robert couldn't help but think of one of Donald's favorite sayings, "Think big." He realized that his thinking had indeed become much bigger over the years. As they entered the reception area, Robert was greeted by the attractive receptionist and was reminded of the set of The Apprentice. They were then escorted to Donald's office where they discussed their potential project. Robert Kiyosaki took an elevator down and walked into the replica of Donald Trump's boardroom. It was a surreal experience for Robert, as he had watched the show many times but never thought he would be in the real boardroom. Teeth, Donald's giant bodyguard, warmly greeted Robert and Kim and made them feel completely at home. Soon, they were ushered into the main office and met Meredith, the young executive woman. After some small talk, Meredith asked what Robert would like to write about. Robert told her he was concerned about poverty and wanted to write about how to end it. He also shared his worries about how the rich were getting richer while America was getting poorer, and how high-paying jobs were being exported to other countries. Meredith nodded and suggested they could write about the demise of the middle class and the poor. She was excited to see what Robert and Kim would come up with and looked forward to reading the article. Kim nodded in agreement. She had always been impressed by Robert Kiyosaki and his passion for financial literacy. She was also impressed by the fact that he was willing to come and speak to the general public at the Learning Annex. "It's really incredible," she said. "He's obviously very passionate about financial literacy, and he wants to make sure that everyone has access to it." Meredith smiled. "Yes, he's very passionate about this issue. He's been talking a lot lately about the disappearing pensions, Social Security, and Medicare. He's very concerned about what's going to happen to our country when the baby boomers start to retire, and these programs are no longer available." Kim nodded again. "He wrote a great book about it," she said. Meredith agreed. "The America We Deserve." He wrote about his concern with those issues as well as the threat of terrorist attacks even before the attack on September 11th. He also talks about the out-of-control national debt and offers some unique solutions. Kim nodded again. She had really enjoyed the book and was glad to hear that Robert was so passionate about these issues. She thanked Meredith for her time and went on her way. Robert and Donald have both been very open about their financial successes and failures in the past, and both have used the lessons they have learned to help others understand and succeed in the world of business and investments. Robert believes that by being open and honest about his own financial struggles, he can help others to learn from his mistakes and find success. Donald has also been very open with his own experiences, writing books such as The Art of the Comeback, which detail his journey back from financial crisis. Both men have used their knowledge and experience to educate others on how to build wealth and succeed in business, and their openness about their own financial issues has enabled them to help others learn from their successes and failures. Robert was sharing his story with Meredith and Kim, explaining why he decided to respect his rich dad's family's wishes and not disclose their name in his book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Most rich people want to keep their success secrets to themselves, he added. Kim looked frustrated at this statement, and Meredith smiled reassuringly. Which is where you and Mr. Trump are different from other rich people, she said. You are both teachers and are willing to share what you know in spite of the criticism. Mr. Trump is criticized for teaching and sharing his knowledge, too, asked Kim. Oh, yes, Meredith replied. A lot of people think he talks and writes and creates educational products like his TV show and his board game because he wants more publicity or more money. But the truth is, he truly wants people to learn. That's why he shares his wins as well as his losses. How many other rich people will do that? Kim shook her head in agreement. Robert smiled and nodded, knowing that his and Mr. Trump's willingness to teach and share their knowledge was something special and unique. When he was speaking to Meredith in the boardroom when there was a knock on the door, it was Rona, Donald Trump's personal assistant, informing them that Trump would be ready to see Robert in 5 minutes. Robert and Meredith stood to leave, and Robert remarked on the fact that he and Donald had both had rich dads who they had learned from and often worked for. Meredith then suggested that what Robert and Donald had in common was that they were both teachers and they could become mentors to the world. Robert smiled, appreciating Meredith's insight, and they made their way to Donald Trump's office. When they arrived, Trump apologized for the delay and they began to discuss their shared passion of imparting financial knowledge to others. Trump was eager to hear Robert's thoughts, and the two discussed the current state of the economy and why there wasn't financial education in schools. Robert was passionate about the need for this education, and Donald was inspired by Robert's enthusiasm. Together, they discussed how they could use their knowledge to help people become wealthy and secure their financial future. A meeting of minds. Robert and Donald discussed the idea of writing a book together that could bridge the gap between their respective financials. Donald highlighted the importance of being a millionaire and the many opportunities it can open up. Robert then shared his friend's story of inheriting his parents' home but not having enough income to support it. They talked about the importance of financial literacy and how it can help people in similar situations to make better decisions. They discussed how to make the book accessible to the public, the topics that should be discussed, and the authors who could contribute. After a few hours of conversation, the two agreed that it was a great idea and began to plan the project. Robert and Donald discussed the issues facing Robert's family. Although they were technically net worth millionaires on paper, they still struggled financially due to their low annual income of less than $90,000. With 3 kids in school, they wondered how they would be able to afford college tuition. Donald noted that this was a common problem, especially after retirement when people had to sell everything just to survive if they became ill. He added that the problem of providing Social Security, Medicare, and long-term care for the baby boom generation was even more daunting, with 75 million new retirees needing health care and medicine. Robert Kiyosaki was worried about the future of his children's generation and how they would be able to afford the financial demands that their generation's dependence on the government would bring. He had already written about it in his book, The America We Deserve, but it had not received the readership he would have liked. Robert then mentioned his other book, Rich Dad's Prophecy, which was about the demise of the stock market when baby boomers retire. He then shared his frustration that the Wall Street publications had not believed his predictions. But then, just a few months ago, both the New York Times Magazine and Time Magazine ran cover stories with similar predictions as to what Robert had said in his book in 2002. He showed Donald the October 31, 2005 issue of Time Magazine, which he had brought with him for his PBS show to illustrate his point. Both two had a deep understanding of the financial problems that were facing the American public, particularly when it came to retirement. They had both read the same articles in the New York Times Magazine, and the cover headline of the October 30, 2005 issue "We regret to inform you that you no longer have a pension," resonated with them both. They had both seen how corporations were picking the pockets of the workers, legally, with the help of Congress. Donald was motivated to use his knowledge to teach, write, and create board games in order to help others prepare for the future. Robert, too, was driven to use his knowledge to help others understand the financial world and make informed decisions. They both shared a deep concern for the future and wanted to do something to help. Both too have been discussing the struggles that many people face when it comes to financial security. Kim and Meredith had joined in the conversation, and it was clear that they all had a passion for helping others achieve financial freedom. Donald lamented that despite their best efforts, many of the people they spoke to at Learning Annex events would still face a life of financial struggle. Kim and Robert nodded in agreement, and it was then that Meredith suggested that they write about their mission to help people become financially secure. Robert and Donald both agreed that this was a great idea, and they began to brainstorm how they could explain why they were so passionate about helping others achieve financial success. Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump were discussing the current financial climate and the lack of financial education in the country. Donald expressed his concern that the middle class was shrinking and that many of them could end up in poverty, even after years of hard work. Robert suggested that they write a book about ending poverty through financial education. But Donald argued that they should focus on teaching people how to be rich and survive the next few years before attempting to end poverty on a global scale. Robert agreed, and they decided to write a book to provide answers to those who were searching for them. Donald's view. The beginning. When I first met Robert Kiyosaki, I was taken aback by the depth of his knowledge and expertise. Although I had heard of his impressive accomplishments, such as selling millions of copies of his books and remaining on the New York Times bestseller list for 5 years, I wasn't prepared for just how powerful and accomplished he truly was. Despite his success, however, he was not intimidating, but rather approachable and easy to talk to. My prediction about Robert was correct. He exudes positive energy that impacts those around him effortlessly. I was struck by his humility and modesty. Despite his impressive success in selling over 26 million books, I couldn't help but wonder if this was a facade or if he had a specific reason for being self-effacing. I quickly realized that Robert was genuine. After a few conversations, I could tell that he was sincere and had a passion for teaching, similar to my own. When I mentioned to him that my reason for joining The Apprentice was its educational focus, he replied, "Donald, you're a teacher on top of everything else." We talked about the significance of education, and he highlighted how the mentor aspect of the show allowed him and Kim to learn something new each week. I inquired about his plans in the event of guaranteed success, to which he responded promptly with, "Expanding our reach and educating a larger audience." Our shared goal, similar to the one discussed at the Learning Annex in Chicago, where I am a renowned business author and he is a leading personal finance author, is to impact millions. Furthermore, we both believe it would be an enjoyable journey. Robert understood my meaning immediately, but he still wanted to consider the book before giving his approval. I knew he was a thoughtful person and would take the time to make the right decision. When we met again at my office in New York a few weeks later, he said, "I have to admit, I was a bit intimidated at first. It felt like an internal battle. I wasn't sure if we had enough in common, but the best part of me won, the part that resists complacency." Robert's honesty with himself and me confirmed why his books have been such a success. Writing books can be enjoyable, but it requires a lot of work and dedication. Due to my busy schedule, I don't have much time for extracurricular activities. However, I found myself looking forward to working on something new, especially with someone who shared my concerns and hopes. Emerson said, "The man who can make hard things easy is the educator, and knowledge exists to be imparted." When I read Robert Kiyosaki's book Rich Dad Poor Dad, I remember thinking that Robert had a talent for making complex concepts easy to understand. He is a great storyteller, which is one of the key factors in making information accessible to people. It's also why he is a great public speaker. Similarly, people have often said the same thing about me. I am not sure if we have this natural ability as storytellers, but it has helped us to help others and simplify seemingly complex ideas through storytelling. When people think of me, they often think of me as the billionaire, which can be limiting. My son Don Jr. has said that I am like a blue-collar worker with a large amount of money. He has spent a lot of time with me and knows that I am simple at my core. This does not mean that I am easygoing, but I do have a straightforward approach to things. Even though my work can be complex, I have the ability to simplify it and make it easy to understand. You don't start out with a fully constructed skyscraper. You need to start with a blueprint and a solid foundation. The same applies to education. It requires time, patience, and dedication. Just like The Apprentice, in life there is not much room for excuses or sympathy. You have to take risks to achieve success. Robert and I are hoping to make that risk less intimidating and more achievable at the same time. When I announced that I was joining forces with another entrepreneur to write a book, many of my acquaintances were taken aback. Entrepreneurs typically love to be in control, and sharing it is not always an easy task. But when you find someone who shares your values and outlook, it can become an enjoyable experience. Working together can make us stronger, not weaker. Many entrepreneurs face difficulty in communicating their visions and goals, which can make the journey feel lonely. The saying "it's lonely at the top, but not crowded" can be true in some situations. Entrepreneurs are people that are constantly looking to challenge themselves and try something new. By coming together, Robert and I have been able to benefit from each other's experiences and create something comprehensive and comprehensible. After all, what's the point of having knowledge if you don't share it? Entrepreneurs often shy away from team efforts, preferring to be in control and have it all for themselves. However, for Robert and I, this wasn't the case. What started out as a regular book project ended up becoming a living example of our journey, from the first meeting to the day the first draft was finished. We wanted to create a resource that could provide financial education to anyone looking to improve their life. And so, this book was born. It has something to offer everyone, no matter their current financial situation. Whether you're a millionaire or just starting out, the lessons in this book are applicable to all. I encourage you to learn and be entertained at the same time. This book is for anyone who wants to take a step outside of their comfort zone. So pay close attention, stay focused, and have fun. Robert and I have one thing in common: we don't like to be bored. Let's get to work and make something great. I hope you will join us on this journey and discover why we want you to be rich. The next video, our shared concerns.